So the first and kind of major point to hit on here is that a lot of these issues at least begin to be resolved by looking at the ways that we vote. And so if we use an alternate voting method like ranked choice voting, it'll start to deal with things, start to address these issues. Now, of course, there's going to be more to it than that, but we'll start there. So as I kind of hinted at earlier, an alternate voting method is one that allows us to give more information than just vote for one person. It allows us to express preferences in some way or another. And ranked choice voting is to do that by ranking the candidates, saying, well, this is my first preference, but if for some reason, they don't have enough votes to win, then here's the second one that I'd be okay with, or here's the third one I'd be okay with. And you kind of go down in order that way. So by allowing voters to rank candidates and to express these preferences, we get around a lot of the spoiler issues and all, because when you don't have that information, there's no way to tell who a voter supported. So even if you wanted to be able to say, like, okay, well, you voted for a candidate that, didn't get enough votes to win, but let's try to find a consensus candidate. Let's try to find a compromise candidate that more people agree on. There's no way to do that if you only voted for one person and they didn't win. So having this extra information about preferences is what's really important. And ranked choice is a very easy way to do that. But it's not the only way. So just to kind of throw out there are discussions on other types of voting methods that can occur, and especially at the local levels, at the municipal levels. It's highly encouraged for towns to consider alternatives, whether they're ranked choice or one of these others, because, well, I'll get to it in a moment here. But there's several ways to capture voter preferences, including our first point here of ranked choice that we mentioned. You rank your candidates in order of preference, and if your top ranked favorite doesn't have the votes to win, then your vote gets automatically moved. It gets automatically counted to your second favorite, or to your third, or however far down it's got to go, right, depending on the number of candidates, until there's an obvious winner. And you can already kind of see one of the benefits to that is that since your votes get moved around, it tends to actually elect candidates that are compromises. It tends to kind of filter out like extreme right-wing voices and things like that, right? Because people will, when they rank them, they're not going to put those candidates first or second or third or whatever, right? So even if an eco-socialist candidate that you'd prefer doesn't quite win, you can still kind of have a better backup, so to speak. That's kind of the idea here with ranked choice. Another option, the second point here, is score voting, which honestly, with the internet and younger generations used to using, Google and Amazon and everything, all the different ranking systems, maybe this is actually one that will become more common. But in score voting, instead of directly ranking, saying this is my first choice, second choice, third choice, each candidate gets an independent score. You can rate them, for example, 1 to 5 stars. You can say this is a 5-star candidate, this is a 3-star candidate, this is I really don't like that one, 0 stars, right? So you express your preferences in that way by a score, and those scores are compared between the candidates, and the candidates with the top scores come together and they count your vote for whoever your preference is out of those, and we pick someone. And again, it tends to pick someone that's kind of the best consensus candidate that more people tend to like, even if it isn't their top preference. And finally, a kind of a simplified version of score voting you might hear about is approval voting, where you just kind of go in and check the box on all the ones that you're kind of okay with. And I tend to feel like that's not as expressive because you're not really giving relative information between the candidates. So I'd say probably a different ranked or score method is probably better. But you might hear that terminology, so I just wanted to kind of throw it in there. The last bit to point out about all these different voting methods is that they technically all have, and you can kind of mathematically prove this in some ways. They all have kind of benefits, and they all have like corner cases where they might how would you put it, like there might be weird cases that happen, right? Just like we were saying, Donald Trump only got like 20% of the primary and then ended up as the nominee, right? That sort of thing can happen in pretty much any voting system, but it's a lot less likely. It's a lot more rare if you use any of these other versions, right? Compared to what we have today. So there's really no reason to not switch to one of these. But because they have different, voters, for example, they might prefer one method or the other. Like I said, younger folks might be more used to seeing scores on things. Maybe there's a good reason to use that instead of ranked choice. Ranked choice has been used a lot historically without any problems. And ultimately, there's really no one best method because of the kind of trade-offs that are involved in how you set up your voting system. So just kind of want to throw that out there too, that ranked choice is probably a very good option for most circumstances, but it's also okay if you want to explore some other things, and communities can get together and discuss that if there's a method that might better suit their needs. So to get more details into that probably requires a little bit more talking, mathematics and stuff like that we don't want to get into for a 101, but just throwing it out there that you'll hear people argue for one or the other, and they're all good, and for purposes of this presentation we're going to stick to ranked choice because it's kind of conceptually simpler, but also it's historically been used a lot, and it's been used successfully, right, for hundreds of years, including in the modern day in many other countries. So like we have a lot of data that ranked choice works really well.
And it's winning in the United States on the local level. In 2020, the majority of places that had ranked choice voting on the ballot, the majority of them won. And some of those were even proportional multi-seat district ranked choice voting, which is the real gold standard that we should be shooting for. I will say, in my personal opinion, we say there's no one best method, but it's not approval. I don't see the virtue in ranking but not ranking. You don't approve of every candidate equally, and some Green parties use approval, and it's always been a mess. So